I seen is an unidentifiable hairy entity. He looked like he was 10 feet tall.
He was so big and powerful, and he could have knocked the guns out of our hands and killed us.
All of a sudden, they came upon this thing with its back to them. And when it heard their voices, it stood up, turned around, and faced them.
There's bodies that go amiss, and they're found weeks, sometimes months later, with 2 puncture wounds in the neck and no blood in the bodies.
He just kind of appeared. It was forceful. It was very aggressive. It was just kind of a little shocking and strange.
The swamps of southern Louisiana are distinctively beautiful, yet dangerous places. Waterways twist and turn like snakes. Subtropical forests grow uncontrollably wild. Chaos rules this waterlogged world. For some that have been raised here, they know its ways. But to others, the swamps are cursed. And whoever ventures within them risks taking on the curse.
Not many people have what it takes to go in the swamp. It takes a person with real will and to know the swamp to go back there.
As you go through there, whether in a boat or on foot, there's just something that's a little bit creepy about being in the swamps.
Walking in the swamp or in a marshland at night, which is not something I would advise or even attempt doing if you're not familiar. It's very eerie, makes your skin crawl. You'll hear things that you don't quite know what it is. You don't feel alone. You never feel alone out there.
Nestled deep in America's bayou country, near the town of Cutoff, Louisiana, legends persist about a mysterious swamp-dwelling beast. A bizarre manimal, part human, part wolf.
Loup means wolf in French, and then garou is a Frankish term that means sort of like a shapeshifter, a man that can change into an animal. The most common form of what a rougarou looks like would be the body of a man, but then the head of like a wolf or a dog. Some people say that that is the form of the rougarou, while others tell you that it can completely shapeshift into either a dog or a pig or even a bird.
The lougarou, or rougarou as the local Cajuns pronounce it, is not a peaceful beast like Bigfoot. One common legend claims it's someone cursed and forced to endure a demonic spell for 101 days.
The rougarou comes out more around the full moon. In my family, we had someone that was actually, we knew he was, and he could be there in his bed. You know, the body was there, but the spirit was not there. He would leave his body. You could actually touch the body, could try to wake him, but you couldn't do that. You know, but then again, in the morning, he would be back and he was his normal self.
For some, the lougarou is an unfortunate victim of possession, transformed by the full moon and unleashed to infect others with a curse. For others, it is a monster that lives in the swamp year-round.
I know for a fact that rougarou is back there in the swamp because I seen him come back. I came face to face with him.
Jebediah Hambone is a Cajun musician who sings about encounters with bayou beasts.
Besides music, hunting the rougarou until I die, that's my goal in life. I'm gonna get him. It's kind of like a boogeyman type thing, something that might be under your bed or something in your closet, you know, like some kind of monster to get you. And that's what we thought as children.
In the bayou, many a misbehaving child has been warned. The rougarou is going to get you. But Jebediah is certain the monster is no bedtime fable. He believes the rougarou is real and claims to have seen it more than once.
He always comes in this particular strip of woods, which is about 5 miles long, and that's where we started seeing the signs. We have a monster. I must have been about 15 or 16 when I first seen the first signs of the rougarou. The evening started out just like any other evening. we went out there and we planned to go and get some rabbits.
Joshua LaFont has been friends with Jebediah for 20 years. He was with Jebediah that memorable night.
We love to go hunt ducks and squirrel, whatever. I don't like to go by myself personally. I like to have somebody with me. And I always bring a gun with me also, because you just don't know what you're going to run into.
We smelled something. It was horrible. We said, that must be a dead animal, rotting, or something like that. We kept on, and we got in deep into the woods, and we walked.
You know, it's an eerie feeling. It feels like something's checking you out. Something's watching your movements.
Come here, I gotta take a look. Catch up, dude. All right. And my partner just yells, like I never heard him yell before. And I ran over as soon as possible to his side, which was about 50 feet away. Hell, man! He couldn't talk, he just pointed.
I was pretty much in shock, because what I saw was
an unidentifiable, gigantic, hairy entity. He looked like he was 10 feet tall, and he was shaped like a big furry thing.
You could see a reflection of some eyes, and then 3 thumps, like a thump, 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 and he was gone.
We ran 5 miles through the woods as fast as we could out of there. We were petrified. Since we've seen the first Rougarou all those many years ago, it makes nothing surprising. The Rougarou is the surprise. After that, you don't have to be afraid of nothing.
Ever since this encounter, Jebediah Hambone has wanted to see it again. For years, he tried tracking the beast. Then, in the winter of 1999, he got lucky.
I go about a mile and a half into the woods.
Suddenly, Jebediah spotted the Rougarou.
The Rougarou started running away, and I grabbed my gun and I started running as fast as I can. I dropped my shotgun, and when the shotgun hit the ground, this is what I did. Fur, claws, and I kept looking, and I kept looking, and he was like 9 feet tall. I couldn't believe my eyes. He was like a monster. And I seen he was a pig man face with a kind of ape body with 5 phalanges and 3 toes on each foot. It scared the living hell out of me. And when I said that pig-type face, I wet my pants. I did. I looked down and I realized it, but I did. I picked up my gun and ran out the woods. And if we could only, get him, bring it, and show it to everybody, that it would actually prove that we wasn't wasting our time or making it up or having fun with it.
It's been more than a decade since Jebediah saw it last.
It's like he disappeared. It's like, does he come here anymore? I don't know. I'm ready to go back there again, and I'm not going to rest until I see that thing again. I want to prove that this is real. Yeah, the Rougarou exists.
Jebediah is one of many that have seen this legendary beast of the swamp. Another family in a neighboring parish, some 20 miles away, had a terrifying encounter of their own.
My father saw this creature go on the table. It had feet like a wolf, saliva coming out of its mouth. If I were to meet one today, I'd be praying for God to deliver it from the devil.
The isolated swamps of South Louisiana are the native territories of the Houma Indians. Long ago, they formed a kinship with this watery world. At the same time, they know the swamp is a place where evil lurks.
The swamp is spooky because of the atmosphere. You feel like something is watching you all the time if you out walking in the swamp. And you hear no creatures, no animals, then there's something else there, walking it.
Elizabeth Courteau is a Houma Indian, born and raised in the bayou in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Her father was a tribal chief, and the man that set a solid anchor for the family as Elizabeth was growing up.
When he told you something, it wasn't made up. It was true. My father would hunt and trap or fish only in the daytime, not at night. He would tell his children never go at night into the swamp because it's a good place for the monsters to hide.
And there's one monster he was especially concerned about, the Lougarou. When Elizabeth was a young teen, she first heard the story of her father's terrifying encounter with this bayou devil.
That's something that I remember. As a little girl, I will never forget as long as I live.
And he runs out the door.
Dad, why are you making this story up?
And I still get nightmares of it.
I'm not making this story up. There's no way.
You know what happened? The devil came to see you. The devil himself.
It all began one stormy Saturday night. The adults were attending a tribal dance, so Elizabeth's father was left in charge to look after his young siblings.
And they had told him, don't let nobody in. It's like they knew that someone was out there. He had fed the children, told them the stories, he put them to bed.
Go to sleep, okay? Okay.
And he went to sit at the table to drink coffee. He was 15, so he was old enough to drink coffee. He heard a knock at the door. It started as a normal knocking. Then it got louder. My father said,
"Who's that?
Who is it?" Didn't answer. It knocked harder still. My father says, "You can't come in." And then he heard the voice, a very raspy, growling voice, to let him in. And he says, "No, go away. I am not going to let you in." So when he said that, it broke the latch and opened it. My father was very terrified, but he was more afraid for the children than himself. He confronted it, and it jumped on the table on all fours. He thought that the creature was going to kill him, but it wasn't the case. He wanted my father to cut him, to deliver him from the curse, to set him free. No! The creature was very strong, stronger than any man.
A Lougarou is a creature that is actually half human and half God knows what other kind of animal. Most people would say it's half wolf or it's half dog, but no one really knows exactly what the other half is. Could be half demon.
It's not everyone that can be a Lougarou or want to be a Lougarou. I believe there's somewhat of a curse, doing things that you normally wouldn't do.
One of the ways is a curse. So if someone puts a curse on you, then that transforms you into a Lougarou.
And according to the legend, the only way out of the curse is blood.
Someone who is a Lougarou, and they go to attack a person, and then that person cuts them and draw blood from the Lougarou. At that moment, the Lougarou turns back into his human form.
One of the strangest things about the Lougarou, it might be the neighbor next door.
The Lougarou can be anyone. A member of your family, your aunt, your uncle.
It was a realization that Elizabeth's father would come to find after his horrific night with a Lougarou.
The next day, he was walking down the road. He met up with his cousin, and he noticed the cousin had a bandage on his arm. And when he saw that, he knew exactly who it was, and he avoided him. Did not want to talk to him, did not want to bother with him.
When he saw his cousin the next day with that same type of wound, he realized that was an instance where he was encountered by the Lougarou.
Elizabeth's father waited years, when he was in his 60s, before telling anyone about the night he had a death struggle with a Lougarou.
I said, "Dad,
How did you make this up?
you made that up."
I'm not making it up.
He told me that he would swear on a stack of Bibles that happened to him.
You saw a monster?
My father's story made me realize that there are things in this world that cannot be explained, that cannot be changed. My mother, she told me, she says, "You know what happened to you? The devil came to see you. The devil himself."
The loup-garou has become a creature of local legend, passed down from generation to generation. But for Elizabeth, the loup-garou is far more than folklore.
The loup-garou is real. From this day, it is lurking out into the swamps and other areas.
90 miles to the east, locals in Honey Island Swamp are also convinced there's something monstrous lurking, and they have the evidence to prove it. At the junction of 3 interstate highways, Slidell, Louisiana is a bustling way station along the Gulf. But just outside the city limits lies pristine wetlands, home to one of the most intriguing mysteries the swamp has to offer.
What I like about living in the swamp is freedom. When I'm out there, the only person I can depend on is me. You're not sure what lies around the next bend. If I make a wrong move, it could cost me my life. So there's always that thought in the back of your head that there's a possibility of something lurking, whether it be man or man-like. I'm not sure.
For over 40 years, locals have come across an unidentified swamp creature prowling these parts.
It looked like in the distance it was between 6 and 7 feet tall. And it was running, and it was in water that was about 4 feet deep. And it was moving faster than any man. It creeped me out.
First thought that came to my mind when I seen it move out from behind the tent was, oh my God, what is this?
I knew that something was out there, didn't want us there. It was like it was a territory, like, you know, you don't belong here. This is where I live, get out.
Many claim to have seen Honey Island's swamp monster. One man managed to film it.
Harlan Ford, my grandfather, was the first person to report a sighting of the Honey Island swamp monster. He was the air traffic controller, and he was also a pilot. Back in 1963, he was flying over the swamp. He said the compass would start spinning. He wouldn't read. And every time they fly over that section, that would happen. It's like a magnetic type of thing. So they decided they were going to go on foot. They were going through this area. It was kind of an opening, like a clearing. All of a sudden, they came upon this thing that was on all fours with its back to them. And Billy's like, what is that thing, Harlan? And
I've never seen that before.
When it heard their voices, it stood up, turned around, and faced them. They went to get their guns because they didn't know what it was going to do, and it took off and ran. And they didn't ever hear water break, but they saw no sign of it at that time.
Let's try over here, come on.
My grandfather said it stood as tall or taller than he was. He was 6'4". And he said the thing he remembered most was its eyes. It had these amber color, real intense eyes that just stared at him, looked him eye to eye before it turned around and ran off. His exact words, it scared the hell out of me. He said, I'd never seen anything like that, ever. He'd been out there for years, and he said at that moment he realized there were things out there unexplainable.
In fact, after his first sighting, Harlan Ford became fixated on seeing the creature again.
He got very curious about it and started, keeping an eye out, always looking over his shoulder,
Harlan even tried setting out bait for the beast.
You stay right there, honey. We'll be back.
Well, when we were children and we used to play with this goat my grandfather brought home, we thought it was our pet. And we learned that he was taking the goat to use for bait. So we were traumatized, crying, please don't take our goat. It's going to be eaten by the swamp monster. So he went out there and took this goat to stake him out.
I don't want him to take our goat.
I don't think he will, honey.
At the end of the day, he said, well, the swamp monster must be a vegetarian because he didn't eat the goat. Or maybe he just is too smart. He knew what we were doing.
The monster didn't have an appetite for goat. And as most locals agree, whatever it is, it hasn't shown an interest in harming people. Not yet.
There's never been any accounts in which I'm aware of the creature being aggressive. But just like any animal, if you put it into a corner, it can be dangerous.
My grandfather, I don't think he was concerned that the creature was going to come after him. Being it ran from him, he thought, well, maybe it's just as scared of me as I was of him.
I think it wants to exist. And I think that's all it really wants. The swamp is so vast. There's so many places that are inaccessible. If it wants to remain hidden, it's going to remain hidden. Now, maybe the sightings we get of it, or reports we get of it, are when it's traveling from one place to the other. Because I don't doubt, like anything else, you have seasons in the swamp. And certain areas of the swamp are going to provide food better at certain times of year than others.
Harlan Ford's use of bait wouldn't be his last clever attempt to prove the monster was real.
He was really fixated on trying to see this creature again. He became known as the monster hunter.
It would take another 10 years, but Harlan Ford finally got another chance to see the Honey Island swamp monster. And this time, he succeeded in bringing back proof. There's something mysterious lurking in the Honey Island swamp near Slidell, Louisiana. A baffling beast many say they've seen with their own eyes. Dana Holyfield's grandfather, Harlan Ford, first saw it in 1963 and dedicated the rest of his years to proving its existence.
I'm sure there is something out there. There's been too many credible eyewitnesses that I've met, besides my grandfather, who have seen it and had some kind of encounter.
When I saw it, it appeared to be upright. It appeared to be covered in hair.
Most of the experiences you hear people talking about usually has to do with hearing noise. It's kind of a high-pitched scream that they talk about hearing.
Dana hasn't seen the monster herself, but she's come close while camping.
As the night went on, it sounded like something picked up a stick and started beating on the tree, like a call. At that moment, I knew that something was out there and could, if it wanted to, just tear this tent apart. I was a little scared.
No end to the sightings, but figuring out what this beast could be remains more difficult. Some have wondered if the swamp monster is some bayou variety of Bigfoot, a southern fried Sasquatch.
It's described as a Sasquatch-type creature, approximately 7 feet in stature. Some say weigh around 400 pounds.
Once again, Dana's grandfather, Harlan Ford, left important evidence. Plaster impressions of footprints he found along the muddy banks of Honey Island.
It was in 1974 that he came across tracks in the mud in an area that was a watering hole. And they had hogs that he found dead in that area with their throats ripped out. And that's when he saw tracks. He's just assuming this creature must have made these tracks. So they wanted to pour the plaster Paris and get the evidence, something that somebody could look at and study them and see, have they ever seen anything like this?
Unlike the 5-toed humanoid often attributed to Bigfoot, Harlan Ford's track casts show something very different. 4 toes, webbed, and at 9 inches in length, almost 50% smaller than typical Bigfoot tracks. To some, they appear to have elements of both primate and gator. If so, it begs the question, how did this creature get here?
There's an old story that was told to me when I was a kid of I want to say it was a P.T. Barnum train that had derailed in the swamp, and some of the circus animals had got out. And some say it was a half hybrid, half gorilla between a human and a primate that had made it.
While its origins remain murky, the swamp monster's identity took on new life in 2002 when Dana Holyfield stumbled upon a miraculous find.
While I was making my documentary, my grandmother came up with this box of tapes, of old Super 8 reels, and some of them were marked alligator, some of them was marked turkey, deer. Then she said, but there was this one in the box, labeled Honey Island Monster. She said, I've never seen it, so we got it out and we put it up on our kitchen wall.
Like a time machine, this secret film strip transported them back almost 3 decades, when Harlan Ford was combing every inch of the swamp, desperate to confirm the existence of its monster.
We're all sitting there and we're watching, and we saw that thing walking. It was in the distance, but you could tell, and it was hairy. He was walking on 2 feet through the woods. We were stunned, amazed that he did capture something on film.
How did Harlan Ford finally manage to get film footage of this famously shy creature.
He was obviously up high in the tree blind, and from his point of view, this thing walks like it comes in. It looks like it kind of shut, like maybe he stopped to look, and then it picks up with it walking on.
Strangely, Harlan Ford never made the footage public.
I think he was just afraid people would go in there, hunt it down, kill it, and he wanted to find out more about it because he realized through other incidents that there were more than one.
Skeptics say until the creature is captured, there will always be doubt. But many living near Honey Island don't need more convincing.
I never doubted my grandfather's encounter because I knew the type of person he was. He wasn't going to make up something like this. He didn't have a reason to make it up. I'd like to say to the non-believers, get you a tent and get you some camping supplies and go spend the night in the Honey Island Swamp. And see if you don't come out with a different opinion.
Whether you try hunting for it or not, no one claims that Honey Island's monster has so far been a threat to life or limb. Yet only 40 miles away, in the heart of the city of New Orleans, people claim there's definitely something dangerous in the air.
Oh my God, there's a man on the roof. He's gonna jump.
Famous for its Cajun cuisine and Dixieland jazz music, the Big Easy is one of the most unique destinations in the world. New Orleans by day is a melting pot of atmosphere and culture. But by night, the old cobblestone streets take on a darker cast.
New Orleans has always been a dangerous city. Growing up here, we were told don't come into the French Quarter. It was a very dangerous place. I remember finding myself on a side street late at night and feeling eyes peering at me and getting a little chill up my spine.
From its very start in the early 1700s, catastrophe, violence, and death were a prominent part of the city.
New Orleans had massive yellow fever epidemics each year, people dying by the thousands. We had two major fires in the 1700s that devoured over half of the city each time, and then numerous hurricanes, a lot of death on top of death on top of death. This sort of creates a situation where it is a hotbed for hauntings. So you have a lot of spiritual activity here because people died traumatically.
And from the city's painful beginnings, a concern with vampires prowling the night emerged early on. The vampire legend seems to have gotten its start in a peculiar way. Of all places, at a Roman Catholic convent in the French Quarter. And with the arrival from France of an intriguing troupe of young women.
These ladies were called casket girls because they came to this country with large wooden boxes that resembled coffins, supposedly hope chests given to them by the King of France as their dowries because they were brides for the settlers.
The casket-shaped cases immediately raised questions.
Many people believe that these women are responsible for bringing the vampires over in those coffin-like boxes.
Whispers turned into full-blown fears that behind its iron gates, the convent housed more than marriageable virgins. That the girls had turned vampires loose in the attic. 300 years later, the Ursuline convent still stands, the only building in the French Quarter that survived the 18th century fires. The Ursuline is no longer used as a convent, yet rumors continue to swirl around its cloistered walls.
People in the lower end of the French Quarter swear that oftentimes late at night, the top shutters will open, only to be shut when the sun comes up.
For Star Murrow and Lisa Peliquin, tales of vampires were just the stuff of legend. Except for the night it all turned too true.
We were shaking, we were all freaking out, everybody was talking about it. Did you see that? Oh my goodness. It was just a really weird experience for everybody that was involved.
One cold autumn evening, Star was with a group of friends passing by the Ursuline convent.
It was me and Lisa, and then some other people that had joined us. We were looking up, and one lady actually pointed out, oh my God, there's a man on the roof of the cathedral. He's going to jump. The very first thing that went through my mind was, holy crud, you know, oh my goodness, this guy's gonna commit suicide. And then he just literally floated off. He's flying. How do you explain that? What do you say? What do you do? I mean, it's just, he's gone. He literally flew away.
I don't know that I was frightened, but more in just disbelief, just awe.
Oh my God, where'd he go?
It's one of those things that, you know, I mean, what do? You can't explain it. You can't push the rewind button and watch it and try to figure it out.
If all these so-called vampires are doing is flying through the night, it might just be entertaining. Unfortunately, they're rumored to act like vampires in other far more dangerous ways.
We are food for them. It's just a matter of they feed on us.
There's bodies that go amiss, and they're found weeks, sometimes months later, with 2 puncture wounds in the neck and no blood in the bodies.
In 2003, there was a gentleman here on a convention. He was very interested in the vampire culture. He wasn't seen again until the maid found him in his hot tub of his hotel room the next morning. They had skinned him and threw him in a hot tub. I don't think he took the warning seriously enough, you know, literally brought these people home and they killed him.
When she was bar hopping one night along the quarter, Valerie Niesel wasn't looking for vampires. But a bloodsucker managed to find her anyway.
He just kind of appeared. It was forceful. It was very aggressive. Of course, my heart was beating fast, and he did try to bite my neck. It was just kind of a little shocking and strange.
New Orleans, ground zero for American tales of vampires. Its unusual mix of old world architecture, swampland climate, and voodoo magic has created the perfect ground for vampire legends to grow. These rumors are so common, natives of New Orleans like Valerie Niesel are raised with them as bedtime stories.
Growing up here, I would hear stories of situations in the French Quarter mainly, where vampires would come out and play or that had played, you know, it being such an old town. But I've never really felt frightened by the fact that vampires could possibly roam the streets of New Orleans.
That self-assurance would be tested in 2007 when Valerie and her friend Elijah Bradshaw went out for a night on the town.
It was just a really regular day. No weird feeling. It was just a last-minute decision to go out to Frenchman anyway. Frenchman Street is our local music avenue.
That night, we just wanted to walk around Frenchman Street and have some drinks, listen to some good local music.
Their plans had barely taken shape when a taxi driver suddenly showed up.
Did you call the cab?
Yeah, but I didn't expect him to ring the doorbell.
I do remember that being very odd, him coming to the door and not calling the house, which I thought was pretty strange.
We told him we wanted to go to Frenchman Street.
Watch out for the crazies.
He made some mention of us going to hang out with the crazies or to watch out for the crazies. And
There was just something about his tone that was ominous. It's kind of just set the tone for the rest of the evening.
the whole time he was driving very erratically, and Elijah and I were just kind of like, whoa, this guy's the crazy one. Just wanted to get out of the cab and have fun.
Thankfully, a few minutes later, the cab ride came to an end. But that's when things really got weird.
I'll be right in.
Valerie came face to face with an unusual stranger.
He just kind of appeared. So it was a little startling for him to all of a sudden just show up right in front of me.
Good evening.
It was kind of an intense feeling. Just the way he, looked in his eyes. It had that, kind of take your breath away a little.
Many people have had instances where they have run across an individual dressed in black, and he's very mysterious. It's also described as if he lands, like there's no one there, then suddenly there is someone there. And they have literally heard his feet hit the ground as if he was not on the ground prior to the encounter.
A vampire's ambush is believed to involve mesmerizing their victims with a telepathic bond. When the prey surrenders fully, the throat-piercing fiend delivers his dark gift.
Good evening.
Thank you.
But Valerie's trance with a stranger was suddenly interrupted. With the crowds along Frenchman Street, she was swept inside a bar.
That was just too...
Safely inside, Valerie and Elijah had a moment to reflect on the strange man and the unusual things he said to her.
It was just kind of upsetting, the questions about my family and asking me what my fairy tale was. But I eventually walked outside for air. Just, kind of clear my head because it was just a little disturbing.
When Valerie didn't return right away, Elijah became increasingly concerned.
I kept calling her, and she never picked up the phone. She never gave me a call back, so I was a little disturbed. I wasn't going to go chase after her. I thought maybe she should stay here at the bar just in case she does call back. I didn't look and be like, oh, this guy's a vampire or anything. I didn't think that.
Perhaps he should have.
I looked over, and he was there. I looked back a few times, and then he was just, poof, there. So it was a little startling for him to all of a sudden just show up.
Will we meet again?
He seemed very concerned for how I was doing. And he then was kind of coming on to me, you know, trying to kiss me and things like that. It was forceful. It was very aggressive. It was just kind of a little shocking and strange. He kept kind of going for my neck. That's kind of where he wanted to focus his passion. It was really startling. It was very shocking. I was just kind of, I just looked around and what the hell was that? And definitely the most confusing part of the experience was just how he had vanished. You know, there 1 second, gone the next. It was just complete. I couldn't wrap my mind around it.
Only his umbrella remained behind.
I didn't want to keep the umbrella. I just didn't want it. Just the whole evening kind of reminded me of just something strange and unexplainable, and I didn't want that umbrella.
Eventually, she just walked back into the bar. And then she seemed a little disoriented, and she was looking around, and she was like, where did he go? Where did he go? She was just like, it was just so strange. She was like, I just felt so dizzy, and like everything was just a whirlwind. And then he was just gone. It was a vampire experience.
He was a vampire. No other explanation. He was a vampire.
Anytime I'm in the French Quarter, I am totally aware that anything is possible out here. Anything's possible and anything can happen at any given moment. You have to be careful because you don't know what's out there, and it's not always something human.